It's our 12th week in the series and we are still in Vermont, and today I will be spotlighting the murder of Roland and Maram Hanel. In September of 1984, Maram and Roland would be found in their chalet, shot multiple times. There are very few clues, no motive, and their case has received very little media attention. 49-year-old Roland was originally from Germany, but split his time between Montreal and Quebec and Vermont since 1969. He owned a plastic factory in Canada and would sell his shares around the time that he married Maram, 32, in 1981. Maram was originally from Egypt, but became a Canadian citizen living in Quebec before moving to Jay to live in the chalet on Gindron Road that Roland had built in 1981. On September 20th, 1984, friends of Maram and Roland would be the ones who would discover their lifeless bodies in their home. The area was popular for bear hunting and the season had already started, so neighbors told investigators they might have heard the fatal gunshots, but they weren't sure. This made it hard for investigators to initially determine how long they believed that Maram and Roland had been deceased. Maram and Roland had lived in the basement of their chalet because they rented out the upper floors at the time, but there was no one staying there at that time, which made it even harder to determine what happened and when. Investigators were able to determine that the last time that Roland and Maram were seen alive was about a week before their murder, when a gas station attendant was pretty sure she saw them buying diesel fuel on Wednesday the 19th. However, investigators struggled with that sighting because of the condition the remains were found in, suggesting that the couple had probably been deceased more than 24 hours. There was a second witness that also saw the couple at the gas station purchasing diesel fuel, and the medical examiner would confirm that the couple had been deceased at least 24 hours before they were found, which also confused investigators even more when it came to determining the exact time of death. In the end, they never determined the exact time of death. An autopsy determined that Maram and Roland had each been shot 8 to 11 times with wounds throughout multiple parts of their bodies. They were not able to determine what type of gun was used, but they believed it could have been a semi-automatic weapon or a handgun. Since there was no powder burn on either bodies, that indicated to investigators and the medical examiner that the shooter was not standing close to the couple when they fired. Investigators were not able to find a motive after talking to friends and neighbors. Their neighbors stated that the couple was warm, likable, friendly, and often kept to themselves. And investigators say they didn't rule out anything in the beginning of the investigation, but they were not able to find anything that pointed them to a particular suspect or motive. There was an armed robbery at a bank in Londonderry 5 days before Roland and Maram's bodies were found. A man named Liam Mays had escaped from prison in Tennessee and traveled to Vermont and robbed a bank. And investigators thought possibly he could have come across the couple and been responsible for their murder, but there was no evidence connecting him to their case. Mays was caught in Wyoming in September of 1985 and pled guilty to the bank robbery, but was never charged in connection to Roland and Maram's case. Investigators turned to the FBI to help them develop a profile of the killer. The profile suggested that the killer likely targeted Maram and Roland and knew them before they murdered them. The profile also suggested that they were probably the same age as Roland and Maram, and they might have been using drugs and alcohol at the time of the murder in an attempt to mislead the future police investigation. In 2000, an article published by the Caledonian Record said that the police had followed a few different leads in their murder. They believe it could have possibly been tied to drug trafficking because Roland owned a boat in Florida and was known to charter cruises. They also thought it could be a terrorism connection between Maram, who worked in 1972 for the Munich Olympics, where 11 athletes and coaches were taken hostage and killed. Investigators say that they were not able to find any connection to the couple with criminal activity or terrorism, and they believe that both leads were only speculative from the community, and they had no evidence to support either. Investigators were hopeful that they could get a lead on the suspect by the ammunition used, but this ammunition was sold across the country and fit many different weapons, so that again was another dead end. Detective Pete Johnson would tell reporters that he did not believe that the killer lived in the Jay area and that the couple were fine, upstanding, and honest people. If you have any information in the murder of Maram and Roland, you are asked to contact the Vermont State Police Major Crime Unit at 802-244-8781. Please continue to share Maram and Roland's face and case in hopes that we can help them generate new leads. Thank you so much for taking the time to get to know both of them today, and don't forget, when you see those missing and murder posts online, to hit share, because every time we share a face, we do get closer to solving a case, and I will see you all back here for day 5, our last day in Vermont, tomorrow.